You're watching the Luca Rosano Show. Here's your host, Luca Rosano.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Luca Rosano Show. On this week's show, I got a very special guest. Mr. Akil Augustine is joining us. How are you doing, my man? Thanks so much for joining the show.
I am being creative. That's how I'm doing. I'm out here being creative during quarantine time.
What exactly have you been doing during quarantine? I mean, give us kind of your day-to-day here.
Oh, wow. What haven't I been doing during quarantine? Just a lot of different things. I mean, I'm in a fortunate position that the quarantine hasn't put too much stress on my lifestyle. Fortunate enough to work for a big company that supported me through this. So first and foremost, shouts out to everybody. I know everybody's got a different journey. For myself, I'm one of those people that, excels alone. I've always invested in, alone time. It's probably my most creative time. It's where I excel. So I've been challenging myself with my free time. Just with any kind of challenge, I've got this little group of friends, my trainer and a couple other guys, and we've kind of just been picking up different challenges, working out, meditation, checking in on some of the content we've been consuming, setting restrictions on lifestyle. So it's really been it's been fun. And as you may already know, I'm an avid reader, an audiobook guy, and YouTube holer. So I've been doing a lot of that, just exposing myself to a lot of different concepts and ideas. I joined Medium.com, reading a lot of different book articles from different walks of life. So, with the 24 hours each day, I've been trying to maximize what I can do while inside.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been following you on Instagram and even seeing your daily meditation. That's probably been huge for just keeping your mental health up to par. How important do you think meditating or even just working out during this time is?
Well, I mean, I can't stress it enough, simply because just understanding how the hormones and chemicals of a human being work, and understand that we live in very confined spaces as a collective here in Toronto and Southern Ontario. So I know that just having the ability to move freely within time and space is really key for physical and mental health. And I also am conscious of we are content consumers. And so we give our ear and our eye to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people out there take that responsibility seriously. I respect a lot of the guys on YouTube who really like the Joe Rogans, Lewis Howes, Aubrey Marcuses, who really respect the listener and the viewer, and try not to inundate you with too many messages. But if you're watching a lot of network television and cable, then you're just getting tons and tons. It's like a 30-second commercial, 5 of them every 6 minutes, and it's just a lot of information, a lot of stimulus. So I think that doing other things that don't involve your phone and your television are going to be key, and to keep the phone and television as kind of like rewards, because if they just become your best friend, it can get dark.
Yeah, it's very interesting you bring that up. I mean, now it's so easy to just be spending all our time on our tablets, phones, TV. So to kind of broaden that horizon, get outside, still get fresh air, I think that's very key during this time.
It makes TV fun again. I was in the binging mode. I binged shows, and it's and I decided I wasn't going to binge The Last Dance, right? Because some people sent me the link to all the episodes.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity, and I'm like, you know what? The way that Last Dance is coming out on the Sundays, it's really structuring my week. And then I started doing it with a couple of my Netflix shows like Ozark and the David Koresh one. And then I'm saving Rick and Morty's now. And so it's allowed me to do other things and still have these little treats. Because I think the biggest thing that I miss most of all, because of the way my life is structured so much around live events and stuff, is I miss having things to look forward to.
Yeah, that's a big thing with obviously sports being put on pause. It's funny you mentioned The Last Dance because I was sent that link also, but I wanted to kind of space it out. What have been your overall thoughts of The Last Dance documentary? I mean, in your opinion, what would you give it? I know there's still 2 more episodes. The final 2 episodes will be this week. What are some of your takeaways from the doc?
Well, the first thing that you should I would say is it's not a documentary. It's a memoir. It's extremely one-sided, extremely slanted. It's not journalistic. It's it's a film created by a fan, controlled by the main subject. So you have to take a bag of salt with it. But at the same time, as a fan, I think Michael Jordan did a really good job of respecting the storytelling process, at the same time as respecting himself and what he wanted to share. I think a couple people. I mean, I love the way it's playing out because, a lot of people think it's a documentary and they treat it as that. But I think with the lack of other sports content out there right now, what you're seeing is other people getting the platforms to defend themselves and to talk about the slantedness of the story, which is really cool too. Like Isaiah Thomas gets a chance to defend himself. Horace Grant gets a chance to defend himself. Kevin McHale gets a chance to defend Isaiah Thomas and to defend the Celtics and to defend the Pistons, right? So I think probably in a different time, in a different bubble, it would have been like, more, it would have been taken at its word, which would have been dangerous because it would have been severely skewed. But I think the fact that, ESPN doesn't have anything else to show, they're going to do the after-show style supplementary coverage, which gives a lot of life to other people who, like Isaiah Thomas, being an NBA TV and ESPN guy, he gets a chance to defend himself because he doesn't come across looking the best in the documentary.
Yeah, I know, that's very true. You've obviously been in a position where you watch the heydays of Michael Jordan. You're obviously watching LeBron James. Who's your GOAT? I'm curious to know. Is MJ your GOAT?
My GOAT is Kobe Bryant. I think you really got to factor in how old were you? I think when Michael was in his prime, I was like 8, 9, and I loved him, and he was the introduction. Actually, I didn't like it. To be honest, I hated Michael growing up. I was a Knicks fan, and I was a Houston Rockets fan. But as I got older and I understood who Michael Jordan was, then aesthetically the sneakers being what they were led you to love him more. And then I was a little older when the comeback happened, and just to watch my uncles and my cousins and my friends react, because they were all older than me. Like I always had older friends and around older people, so that was like what enamored me to him. But you think about I got to work in the NBA from like 21, 22 to now, and you think about who dominated the NBA over that span, and the age that I was still young and naive in my 20s, and you still idolize people. And you probably, hold people in a higher light than you should, as you would at my age when you're a little bit more cynical. So I think for me now, I look back and I say Kobe Bryant was the guy who kept me involved with the game of basketball. And not only just that, and I love his competitiveness and the beauty of the game. I think more so his personal demeanor, how he went about it. And I think I'm a big Phil Jackson fan. And I think just being associated with Phil was probably very important for me. Knowing that Phil respected Kobe's Mamba mentality, and knowing that Phil's the guy who is, who introduced me to meditation through, his whole attempt with the Bulls to clear Michael's mind. That's one of the first, I think it was Jay-Z had a line in Life and Time, Volume 2, time to step it up another level, meditate like a Buddhist. And then I heard it from Phil Jackson, and then I think Gangstar Guru had a song where he mentioned meditation and a Buddhist or Dalai Lama type figure, and those were some of the first times I ever got into that world of Eastern philosophy. And so, I think that's something that I bonded with Kobe over, just those associations.
You're heavily involved in the industry. You're a courtside reporter for Raptors 905. Describe the experience of that. What's that been like for you and your career?
Well, again, I think a lot of my fortunateness is just due to time and place and circumstance. You think about it, when I was younger, the Raptors didn't exist. And I was lucky enough to be passionate about the sport at a time when, unluckily for you, you have competition, right? There are lots of people who are in the world of broadcasting and attempting to do things in content. In the year 2001, nobody was making basketball content.
That's hard to believe.
Nobody in Ontario had a camera and said the word basketball outside of Leo and Matt and Jack.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, the whole thing for me is a result of the community that I live in. Like, I grew up in a neighborhood that boasted Mike Kabongo, Vidal Messiah, Colin Charles, Jamal McGlure, Top Gun tournament, Top Gun basketball, Eastern Commerce. So I kind of, when I came to Canada, was kind of thrust into this community, and then befriended people like Rowan Barrett at an early age, like Sherman Hamilton. I met these people when I was 12, 13, I've known Jay Triano since I was a teenager. So luckily for me, just being in downtown Toronto and having a passion for the game that I had and having a big enough mouth to talk about it, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. There was no one doing what I was doing. When I created my YouTube show, when I created the Hangout, when I asked to be a reporter for Raptors, people didn't want to do it. So it was really about, like, and I think that still plays out today, that we're a community that has embraced sports and live events. And so there's so many opportunities for people to storytell. And as a natural storyteller, I kind of found my opportunity, and we've kind of built this community in Toronto where we've got tons of people making, like, if you look at the use of social media per capita per city, and Toronto is one of the leaders. We are early adopters of all sorts of technology. So I think being in Toronto has been a huge part of, and then, like, you think about it, like, I ended up working for Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which is a monolithic corporation. I get to work for the Raptors, the Leafs, TFC. Luckily enough, growing up in Scarborough, I got to familiarize myself with a lot of guys who work with OVO. So I got the opportunity to host Drake's tournament, right? And working in Toronto downtown with a lot of the people I work with professionally, once Nike Canada started doing brands and sponsored stuff. So it all kind of just stemmed out of this community that exists, because whenever I go to a basketball event, I see the same people all the time. So there's really just this small group. Well, I don't even know if it's small anymore, but it's a very familiar group for me of people, and just opportunities arise out of a community. So I was just fortunate. The Raptors created 905. I was already working for the Raptors. That happened. 905 win a championship. Raptors win a championship. I get a lot of the refracted glory and light from the fact that just this is the progression of Toronto.
Yeah, no, you've definitely been in a good position, been doing a great job, obviously, given the opportunities you have because of, what you do. When covering the Raptors 905, I'm curious, who are some, like, players who have stood out to you? You obviously know Raptors 905 have developed some guys, who have turned out to be big-time players for the Raptors, Siakam, Fred VanVleet. Looking at this current roster with the Raptors 905, is there anybody who stands out to you as being that guy who can make a jump?
Wow, this year's Raptors 905. Shoo. Well, I mean, so long since I've actually, like, ran back the footage and the tape. But I mean, the real thing that you were looking for there was O'Shea Brissett, a guy, again, I've known since he was like 13 years old. He played for Northern Kings, played for CIA Bounce. I know all of his coaches, from Nicky Davis to Tony McIntosh to Vidal Messiah. So, I think O'Shea added that element of athleticism and rebounding and just another body that you could throw in there, especially when OG had his difficulties and they didn't get the kind of performances they wanted out of Stanley, and they were kind of like using that as a motivation of, hey, we got this young guy that we could throw in there that's just going to junk things up. So I think the progression of O'Shea, because they've had such good success developing wing players, if you look at the growth of Norman Powell, you look at the growth of Pascal Siakam, and just the importance of that position in this game, to have those guys that don't require shots but can bang that corner three and really come in and change the energy level of the game, which you saw him do in spurts in the season with the Raptors, more so than the Raptors 905, because I think when he was in 905, understanding the reputation he had with the Raptors of being this young up-and-coming kid, you kind of expected more from him. And I think that's a good thing that Jam Malila did, was he often tried to set the expectation of, we're not trying to have O'Shea do with the 905 what he doesn't do with the Raptors. So if you get to see him getting 6 rebounds and 4 points with the Raptors in the 13 minutes that he played coming off the bench, don't expect him to come get 30, 10, and 10 with the 905, because that won't translate. We're not sending him up to the Raptors to get 30 points. That's what they have Kyle and Fred and Pascal for. He's got to excel at shooting the gap on rebounds, at boxing out, at that corner three, at making the right read, at knowing the defensive situations. And so I think that was the guy I think that they really keyed on having blossom this year. Again, Terrence Davis was supposed to be this year's 905 guy. He was a guy that they saw in Vegas, and they said, well, there's a player. Everyone knows the story. Like, you don't sign a guy in Vegas after one game when he's not playing for your team. It's unheard of, but they really liked him. And so originally coming into the season, it was anticipated that Terrence Davis would be playing the role that Fred and Pascal and guys like that, Jordan Lloyd, right? Zoe, right, from 2 years back. Like those guys played that lead guard that made everything a bit easier for everyone. And then they needed Terrence, and that was gone. And I think that led to it put a lot of pressure on Coach Jama and Tyler, because Tyler being more of a traditional point guard, Tyler Ennis, which is another guy I think who's an NBA-bound guy. Tyler Ennis is much more of he's a true second point guard in the NBA, I believe, but he's not as much of a scorer type as an initiator. And I think Tyler looked really good alongside a dominant two guard at that level, because it would open up a lot of lanes for him. But again, it was a challenge because Tyler was still coming after a big leg injury also. But I would say that of those are the three names that I would have that stuck out for me in terms of the 905. I think not so much for the Raptors, but maybe depending on Fred's situation, Tyler, but definitely O'Shea, because he already brought a bunch of things they needed. And then Terrence, question answered.
You mentioned it there with Fred VanVleet, being one of those guys who has a big decision to make this offseason. I want to get your take on this. How do you see the Raptors offseason playing out when it comes to Fred's decision, Mark's decision, Ibaka's decision? Who do you think comes back, and how do you think this Raptors team will look next year? It could look very different, or it could look much of the same.
Well, the sad thing is I think that a lot of that depended on how the season played out, because if you saw how they were playing amazing. And I don't anticipate – I think it would have been tougher for Mark and Serge in just terms of where they're at in their career, knowing that past a certain age you're trying to maximize the financial gains of your career, and they've already won a championship. So I don't know. I couldn't make a ready prediction, but I can't imagine this season going well and Fred VanVleet not being a Raptor next year.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that, especially with the bond that he's developed with Pascal, and understand how the two of their games are complementary, and knowing that these guys are kind of – I count them as smarter individuals. Not to say that anyone isn't smart, but I think a lot of times guys buy into their own success and don't think it's a result of the environment they're in. And I give all credit due to Fred, who's a guy who bets on himself. But as much as betting on himself, he also kind of bets on the place that he's at a lot. He understands what the Raptors are, who Coach Nick Nurse is, who Masai Ujiri is. So I think a lot of these guys who grew and developed, with the Raptors Summer League team, the 905 team, and then got to win a championship with that big club, I think they probably have a great understanding of exactly how valuable their experience with the Raptors has been to them professionally and financially.
Let's jump now to free agency 2021. It's a big topic of conversation, especially on YouTube. I want to get your opinion on this. The whole Giannis sweepstakes. Do you think there's a chance he can find himself here in Toronto? What do you make to that? Or do you think that's just noise?
I buy it. I mean, it's a legitimate rumor. It's a legitimate rumor. I mean, if you don't buy it, then you don't believe that, Masai Ujiri's continuously surprised us with his ability to maneuver, right? You talk about Carmelo in Denver. You talk about, reneging on the Kyle deal and making the best out of that. You talk about the deal he made with Grievous Vasquez and those guys that kind of initiated stuff. Or was that Bryant? Maybe that was Bryant. I don't know if.
No, Grievous, I believe, that was Masai, I think.
That was okay. Yeah. Time's blurry right now. I have no sense of time because I'm being home.
It's the same day every day. So.
Yeah. What day is it? It's today. But I think his history of being able to maneuver in the market, whether it be free agency or trades, has been impressive.
Yeah.
And he's the most sought after general manager in the league. So if you put those two together, you say when he calls, I imagine both GMs and players listen. And I think the other thing, too, that you got to factor in is this is a different age than when Vince left Toronto. And I think it was initiated with Masai, if I'm correct. Because if you look at the deal that Kevin Durant made with the Warriors, he notified them and allowed them to make a deal to get D'Angelo Russell so that he wouldn't walk away after the deadline and they get nothing, right? And you look at it's actually been a trend the last couple of years, because I think what happened with LeBron in Cleveland was kind of bad for the GM, and he was kind of burned, and I think a lot of GMs rallied around the fact that they can't let that happen to a franchise. And to draw it back to Masai, why I started there was because I'm not sure it was too common to move a player of Carmelo Anthony's caliber and get back value And to say values, you're not going to get back apple for apple generational star. But what he got back allowed Denver to, first off, satiate their fan base, right? Even though they were upset. Keep the product relatively good and put them in a position for a big push in the future, which, pardon me if I'm wrong, Denver's got one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, right? So I think, and that deal was years back, right? How long ago did Carmelo go to New York? So I think that kind of set a precedent, or at least set a framework for future deals. And I think that Milwaukee, knowing that Giannis is once in a lifetime player, they're gonna maximize this opportunity. Of course, the top option would be re-sign him, but option 2 is definitely get value.
Yeah, it'd be travesty if they lost Giannis and got nothing in return. That's why you're hearing a lot of speculation now.
No franchise should ever do that again because the framework's out there, But again, it's based on the superstar player and him having a conversation with the GM and being open about it. And I guess that's real swing state there.
Last question for you, Akil. You've obviously covered this team for so many years. You've seen, the lows of the lows, the highs of the highs. I'm curious to hear this from you. Your top 5 Raptors of all time, from 5 to number 1. Who are they?
Number 1, for me personally, Damon Mighty Mouse Stoudemire.
But best of all time, number 1?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go 5 to 1. Build up some suspense.
All right, for suspense. Okay, so you don't know who my first is. Number 5, you got to give respect to Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry deserves all the respect in the world for the toughness and what he's brought to the team. Number 4, you got to give mad respect to DeMar DeRozan because he's a great human being. Above all else, he's a great human being. I don't care what he does on the basketball court. He's a great guy to me, and I know what type of guy he is, and he's just a great guy. And it was an honor to report on him and to work with him and to travel with him and the team for the time that I did. Number 3, Vincent Lamar Carter. Just because he's Vincent Lamar Carter, he's Air Canada, he's the reason, we got up and down and enjoyed the game the way we did. Okay, so wait, okay. All right. Again, my number 2 favorite Raptor of all time is Fred VanVleet. I love Fred. I think Fred's another guy where it's just, I think with me, I like people. As much as I love basketball, I like people, and Fred VanVleet is great people. So I just like the way he carries himself. I like the way he respects the people around him. He takes time to shake hands, make eye contact. He gives people a lot of respect, and I respect that about him. And then number 1 of all time, again, for me, a lot of this chemicals and timing. I was 13, 14 years old when the Raptors got a team, and this kid was 5'10", chucking up threes, crossing dudes over. And I loved Mighty Mouse as a cartoon. Oddly enough, back in Trinidad, it was one of the few North American shows that we would get, like Woody Woodpecker, Mighty Mouse, and stuff like that. So something I was already familiar with from Trinidad.
Yeah.
That when I came to Canada, it was like, oh shoot, this guy, Mighty Mouse, like that's insane. It blew my mind. So for me, and again, he had a really great Nike shoe. It was part of the Jason Kidd line with this like marble bubble at the back. So a lot of it is like little ancillary things around the movement. And I just remember like walking. I remember that after the draft. No, it wasn't after the draft. It was just a regular. I think it was after 3-on-3. Like when I was like going into grade 9. Like we're walking the streets one night, and we walked by like a Foot Locker on Yonge Street, and I just saw like the shoe and the poster, and it was just the lighting of the night. It was like dusk. Store front window display, and for some reason for the rest of my life, I always remember looking inside that store and seeing Jason Kidd sneaker, Michael Jordan sneaker, and David Stoudemire sneaker, and that was like, it's like an image that's always gonna stay with me.
So just to clarify, these are your top 5 favorite Raptors of all time. You went based on your preference. Who would you go if you had to talk like best Raptors of all time and the storied franchise? What would that top 5 look for you? Talking pure best Raptors.
Well, it would go. Can I go in order of 1, and then 2, 3? How many do you want?
Give me your top five. Top five greatest Raptors of all time.
Top 5 greatest Raptors, the greatest players to play in a
Yes.
Raptor uniform.
We know your top five favorite Raptors, but now I want to know, in your opinion, the top five greatest Raptors to ever wear the uniform.
Number 5, Alvin A. Boogie Williams. Number 4, Jerome Junkyard Dog Williams. Number 3, Vincent Lamar Carter. Number 2, DeMar DeRozan. Number 1, Kyle Lowry.
So no Kawhi Leonard or Bosh in your top five.
One season, no cut it.
What's that?
One season, no cut it. And Bosh doesn't make it.
Wow. Okay, that's some interesting stuff, guys. Let us know down below what you think of Akil's top five greatest Raptors of all time.
JYD is a different animal.
Oh, I was a huge fan of his.
But at the same time, you don't understand. Like, it's easy to get up in Chicago and LA and be Dennis Rodman. You know, a big market, everybody's watching. But in a town that doesn't understand the game, where you're winning people over, that guy didn't care where he was, what time it was. He was giving his all. And I think for someone who doesn't understand how good it is, how hard it is to cover an NBA player and to go out there and compete with the best, to understand the toolkit that Junkyard Dog Williams was working with, and to know that he was mostly going off of sheer effort and a lot of God-given talents, but at times he was outmatched. It's amazing what he was able to accomplish in his time in the NBA, but especially the time with the Raptors, because there weren't a lot of other good pieces around, except for the 2 seasons when, like, you know, they really caught fire.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just for the record, my top five greatest Raptors all time. I got Bosh 5, DeRozan 4, Carter 3, Kawhi 2. I know you say you don't count one season, but he did help us win the pinnacle, the championship, and I got Lowry 1. Okay. Lowry's the GOAT Raptor, so we agree on that one.
Yeah, Lowry definitely, you can't really argue against that guy.
Yeah.
He's been the heart and soul and the backbone of the team.
You can. Everybody loves him. And he's been here for, the last decade. He was at that point when we were very, very bad. And then to see him, with that group in 2019 get to the top of the mountain, that was special to see. And I'm sure from your perspective, that was great to see him reap the benefit of a championship after all his hard work.
It was a winding road, but they got there.
Okay, Akil, this has been a ton of fun. We got rapid fire questions to end us off here. You ready to do this?
Born ready.
Okay, let's go. First rapid fire question. Favorite interview you've ever done?
Ooh, favorite? Damn it. That was, okay, I'm not rapid firing here.
You've done a lot. Yeah.
Favorite interview with Scottie Pippen one-on-one in New York City.
Ooh, I like that. Favorite music artist right now in the game today?
The God, Kanye West.
If you could build an NBA franchise around one current NBA player, who would it be?
Giannis.
Best experience you've had while working in the field?
World Basketball Festival. Nike treats you well. We're creating content for them, and we're on the beach in Chicago with the world's best basketball players.
Interesting. Something people don't know about you?
I can transcendentally meditate.
Wow. You're a reader, as many people know. Best book you've read during this quarantine?
The best, The Energy Codes by Dr. Sue Morter.
I gotta check that out. And last but not least, who do you admire the most?
God.
And that's how we're gonna end it. I respect that. Akil, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, joining me on the Luca Rosano Show. Guys, please like, subscribe, go check out Akil. I'll put his Instagram down below. And stay safe, my man. Hopefully we can do this again soon in better times.
Yes, sir, man. Take care. Stay safe. Congratulations on your show, and I look forward to more from you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the viewers for watching. Till next time, this is Luca Rosano. Have yourself a great weekend, and I'll catch you all again in the next one. Peace out.